In the heart of Islamabad, on what should have been a joyful 17th birthday, a rising TikTok star's life was cut short in a crime that shocked the nation. Sana Yousaf, a student and cultural icon to thousands, was gunned down in her own home, allegedly by someone she barely knew. But who was this girl beyond the viral videos, and how did admiration turn into obsession, then murder? What follows is a chilling account of fame, rejection, and a justice system racing against public outrage. Stay with us, because the real story is just beginning. Sana Yousaf was born on the 2nd of June 2007 in Upper Chitral, a mountainous district in northern Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. She later moved to Islamabad, where she pursued her education and lived with her maternal aunt. At just 17 years old, Sana had already gained significant recognition on social media. As a TikTok and Instagram influencer, she built a platform centered around the celebration of Chitrali culture and the promotion of education, particularly for girls. By June 2025, Sana had amassed a substantial following, over 740,000 followers on TikTok and more than 500,000 on Instagram. Her content typically included traditional music, fashion from her native region, and videos encouraging young women to pursue education and maintain cultural pride. Fluent in both Urdu and Khowar, Sana used her multilingualism to reach diverse audiences, often addressing social issues through her videos in a subtle but impactful manner. Friends and followers described her as intelligent, ambitious, and deeply connected to her roots. Her online presence was notable not for controversy, but for its focus on heritage and empowerment. Her final TikTok post, uploaded shortly before her death, was a birthday montage celebrating her turning 17. It featured photos of her in traditional dress, accompanied by uplifting music and captions. One of her last written messages read, "I'm proud of where I come from and who I am." Despite her rising fame, Sana remained enrolled in a medical sciences program in Islamabad, balancing her academic life with her digital advocacy. She frequently posted about exams, classes, and aspirations to become a healthcare professional. Her public persona remained rooted in modesty and activism, and she rarely discussed her private life in depth online. Sana's life trajectory reflected a generational shift. She was part of a wave of young Pakistanis using digital platforms to challenge stereotypes and amplify underrepresented voices. Her popularity was not only a reflection of her charisma, but also of the growing demand for content that resonated with cultural identity and gender equality in Pakistan's youth. Yet beneath the surface of her public success, unseen threats loomed. Unknown to many of her fans, Sana had been dealing with harassment from individuals who mistook her public presence for personal availability. One of them, a fellow TikTok user from Faisalabad, had taken a disturbing interest in her, a detail that would only come to full light after her death. On the day of her 17th birthday, Sana's story would take a tragic turn, shaking her followers and the nation. Shortly before her death, Sana posted a birthday tribute video on TikTok. Set to an upbeat track, the montage included selfies, school pictures, and scenic shots of Chitral. It was captioned simply, "17 today. Alhamdulillah for the journey." The tone was celebratory, proud, and forward-looking. Her final Instagram story, uploaded the same day, showed her holding a cake, smiling with her aunt in their living room. Unknown to her followers, Sana had grown increasingly anxious about an individual who had recently attempted to contact her repeatedly. While she did not name him publicly, she had shared with a close friend her discomfort over a fellow TikToker who had begun to act possessively. It would later emerge that this user, Umar Hayat from Faisalabad, had fixated on Sana through her online content and made repeated attempts to initiate contact. Despite her precautions, her rising fame could not shield her from the dangers that sometimes accompany public life, particularly for young women in patriarchal societies. Her commitment to empowerment and visibility, though celebrated by many, had also drawn the attention of a man who misread her presence as an invitation. By the end of her life, Sana Yousaf had become more than a social media figure. She was a symbol of youth-led cultural revival, educational activism, and modern Pakistani womanhood. But her digital prominence, meant to uplift and inspire, had tragically intersected with obsession and control. The day began in celebration. It was Sana Yousaf's 17th birthday, a milestone she acknowledged publicly with a TikTok post showing childhood photos, traditional music, and joyful captions. She spent the day at home in Islamabad with her maternal aunt, who had raised her since her relocation from Chitral. The modest home in Sector G13-1 was where Sana balanced her studies, online activities, and family life. Around 5 p.m., the routine calm of their household was shattered. A man named Umar Hayat arrived at the property. Hayat, a 22-year-old from Faisalabad, had previously interacted with Sana online. A fellow TikTok user, he had built a minor presence of his own, but had become increasingly fixated on Sana. Police investigations would later reveal that he had made multiple unwelcome attempts to initiate personal contact, all of which Sana had rebuffed. On that afternoon, Hayat traveled nearly 300 kilometers to Islamabad. Surveillance footage later confirmed his movements. According to reports, he approached the front door and requested to speak with Sana. Her aunt answered and initially refused him entry. After a brief verbal exchange, he pushed past her and entered the home forcibly. Confronted by both women inside the residence, Hayat pulled out a firearm and shot Sana twice in the chest at close range. She collapsed immediately. The aunt, in shock, tried to intervene but was unable to stop him. Hayat then fled the scene. Neighbors, alerted by the sounds of gunfire and screams, contacted emergency services. Police and rescue units arrived promptly. Sana was declared dead at the scene. Her body was later moved to the Pakistan Institute of Medical Sciences, PIMS, for a post-mortem examination. The report confirmed that she had died instantly due to multiple gunshot wounds to the upper body. Initial statements by law enforcement identified the shooting as targeted and personal. There was no evidence of robbery or forced theft. Sana's belongings, including her phone, laptop, and cash, remained untouched. The motive appeared rooted in rejection and obsession. Investigators noted that Hayat had brought the weapon with clear intent and had traveled specifically to confront Sana on her birthday. Later that evening, police reviewed footage from nearby CCTV cameras and began tracing Hayat's escape route. Digital forensics teams worked quickly to analyze his recent phone activity, identifying him as the primary suspect within hours of the attack. Warrants were issued for his arrest across districts, and checkpoints were established on major roads leading out of Islamabad. As night fell on the capital, news of the murder began circulating on social media. Fans, unaware of the circumstances, initially thought it was a hoax, but confirmation from family members and police statements turned shock into mourning. Tributes began pouring in across platforms, with the hashtag #Sana Yousaf trending nationwide. Her final birthday video was shared thousands of times as followers struggled to grasp the sudden loss. Meanwhile, Sana's family remained in a state of shock. Her aunt provided a statement to police, confirming that Hayat had visited previously in an attempt to meet Sana, but had been turned away. She described his demeanor as agitated and persistent. Her account formed the basis of the First Information Report, FIR, which led to Hayat being officially listed as the suspect in a case of premeditated murder. Over the next 12 hours, law enforcement expanded the search to Faisalabad and its outskirts. The incident had become a national story by morning, raising not only concerns about digital safety, but also the real-world dangers of online harassment escalating to violence. Within hours of Sana Yousaf's death, on the 2nd of June 2025, the Islamabad police launched an intensive investigation to apprehend her killer. Their primary suspect, Umar Hayat, had already fled the scene. Armed with eyewitness testimony from Sana's aunt, forensic evidence from the crime scene, and digital footprints, authorities began a rapid manhunt that would span 2 cities and over 300 kilometers. Investigators recovered 2 crucial sources of evidence early in the case: CCTV footage from nearby surveillance cameras and cell phone data. The security footage confirmed Hayat's arrival at Sana's home in Sector G13-1 at around 5 p.m. It also captured his subsequent departure on foot, shortly after the gunshots were reported. Forensic teams at the scene matched shell casings to a 9mm pistol. Witness statements and the absence of stolen items reinforced the conclusion that the killing was deliberate and personal. Cellular triangulation provided the next major lead. Police traced Hayat's phone activity and movement patterns before and after the murder. His device had remained active briefly after the incident, pinging off towers in Islamabad before disappearing. The data trail re-emerged later that night in the Faisalabad region, suggesting he had returned home or sought refuge there. Using this information, police teams from Islamabad coordinated with counterparts in Punjab province to track him. Intelligence units monitored bus terminals, toll plazas, and fuel stations along major highways. They identified his likely direction of travel and worked overnight to pinpoint his location. By the afternoon of the 3rd of June 2025, law enforcement officers located Hayat in Faisalabad. He was arrested during a targeted raid on a residence reportedly belonging to a relative. The operation was executed without resistance. Inside the house, police recovered a mobile phone, clothing matching CCTV footage, and a handgun believed to be the murder weapon. Ballistic tests would later confirm the match. At a press briefing held that evening, Islamabad Inspector General of Police Syed Ali Nasir Rizvi described the killing as gruesome and cold-blooded. He noted that Sana's rejection of Hayat's advances had been a source of growing frustration for the suspect, culminating in the premeditated act. He traveled all the way to Islamabad with a weapon, Rizvi said. He forced his way into the house, confronted her, and killed her because she refused him. Investigators confirmed that Hayat had contacted Sana multiple times via social media and messaging apps. These attempts were one-sided and unreciprocated. Screenshots from his account revealed obsessive messages and expressions of entitlement masked as affection. Sana had previously blocked him, according to her friends. Yet Hayat had continued to follow her public activity. Hayat's arrest was met with a wave of public response. Online users expressed a mix of relief and outrage. Many demanded justice be delivered swiftly. Civil society groups and women's rights organizations called for broader reforms to protect public figures, particularly women, from stalking and harassment. The police, under pressure to maintain public trust, promised a thorough and expedited legal process. The weapon, a black 9mm pistol, was sent for forensic analysis. The suspect's digital devices were seized for examination, including his search history and online behavior. Preliminary analysis indicated that he had researched Sana's location and birthday in the days leading up to the attack. His movements suggested pre-planning rather than impulsive violence. Sana's funeral was held quietly in Islamabad. Her family, including her aunt, declined media interviews, but thanked supporters for their messages. A small crowd of mourners, including classmates and local activists, attended the service. Tributes were left at her home: flowers, candles, and printed photos from her social media accounts. The arrest of Umar Hayat closed one chapter in the investigation, but many questions remained. The legal process was now underway, with court proceedings to follow. Yet the swift resolution of the manhunt was seen by many as a rare instance of efficiency in a system often criticized for delays and negligence. Following his arrest on the 3rd of June 2025, Umar Hayat was transported from Faisalabad to Islamabad under tight security. He was presented before a magistrate on the 4th of June at an Islamabad district court. Wearing a face covering and flanked by police officers, Hayat remained silent during the brief session. The court proceedings marked the beginning of what was expected to be a closely monitored and high-profile legal case. During this initial hearing, the investigating officer requested a judicial remand to allow for the completion of preliminary investigative steps, including the forensic examination of the weapon and a formal identification parade. The magistrate, Ahmed Shehzad, granted a 14-day judicial remand and ordered that Hayat be sent to Adiala jail in Rawalpindi. The judge also directed the police to present the suspect again on the 18th of June, by which time the prosecution was expected to file initial charges. The court emphasized procedural transparency, mandating that the identification parade be conducted before any further statements were recorded. However, the initial proceedings faced a delay due to the absence of the district prosecutor. The magistrate expressed concern over the disruption and instructed that the prosecutor be present for the next hearing, warning that further delays would not be tolerated. The suspect was placed in solitary confinement at Adiala jail, a standard measure for high-profile detainees. Authorities confirmed that Hayat was being monitored for his own safety, citing the public outrage surrounding the case. Meanwhile, forensic teams completed ballistic testing, which confirmed that the weapon found in Hayat's possession matched the casings recovered at the crime scene. His fingerprints were also found on the firearm. Legal experts noted that the case could proceed under Section 302 of the Pakistan Penal Code, which pertains to premeditated murder. If convicted, Hayat could face the death penalty or life imprisonment. The Islamabad police continued to compile digital evidence, including screenshots of past messages, search history, and metadata linking Hayat to the planning stages of the attack. The upcoming proceedings held significant implications, not only for the outcome of this particular case, but also for the broader conversation around women's safety and legal accountability in Pakistan. Observers noted that public trust in the judiciary would hinge on how efficiently and transparently the case was handled. By the second week of June, the prosecution had compiled over a dozen pieces of documentary and digital evidence. While the formal indictment was pending, the groundwork was clearly being laid for a case that would test the limits of legal responsiveness to gendered violence in the digital age. The next court hearing is scheduled for June 18th, when formal charges are expected to be brought and key evidence presented. To stay up to date and find out the outcome of the trial, subscribe to the channel and I will announce the result as soon as it is known. Also, share your opinion on this terrible case in the comments and like the video. See you soon.